We now move to the south of the continent, where we understand that the Human Sciences Research Council has published a new study on human trafficking in South Africa. The book was released by author Professor Frankel, who has worked on trafficking issues for a decade and also authored the only other book on the subject in South Africa. Now, Long Walk to Nowhere, Human Trafficking in Post-Mandela South Africa, which came out in 2017. The new book goes beyond anything ever written in its exploration of the various forms of trafficking, with chapters on sex, labor, child trafficking, which are supplemented by material on the child organ trafficking for multi-murder, illegal adoption, and baby farming of children for exploitation by foster parents. Now, to discuss more on this, we are joined by Professor Frankel, author of the book, Human Trafficking in South Africa. Thank you so much for your time.
Hi, good afternoon. Good afternoon.
All right, so let's get straight to it. Now, what motivated you to write a book on human trafficking in South Africa?
Well, we've always known that there's a degree of human trafficking in South Africa, and the first reports on this, which were conducted by academics, came out at the beginning of the millennium, and there was a big report again in 28-29, also done by the Human Sciences Research Council. Now, at the time, I was working in mining, and during the course of a visit to an underground mine in Welkom in South Africa, myself and the research team discovered something very strange going on, and we found out eventually that this involved labor trafficking. So my first interest was labor trafficking, but then my feelings, my interest broadened to include sex trafficking and child trafficking, and that led to my first book on this in South Africa, which was in 2016, 2017. The new book is basically an update, because there have been a number of changes since then which need to be documented, and we need to take another look to see whether the situation is either improving here or whether it's getting worse.
Now, what are some of the key findings of your research or investigation on human trafficking in South Africa? I mean, part of the issues you covered include multi-mother and child organ trafficking. What other key issues did you unravel, in the course of your research?
Yeah, well, look, we found that there is very substantial trafficking. We can't say with exactitude how much that is, because trafficking is a very underground crime. Police statistics on trafficking are often completely wrong. They're off the point, they're over-exaggerated or under-exaggerated. So we can't say with exactitude, but we estimated, based on a number of criteria, including international studies, that there's something like perhaps 250,000 victims of trafficking in South Africa at the moment. Of those, about 50% are probably being trafficked for labor. Another 30% are being trafficked for sex. Those are mainly women. And then, of course, there's child trafficking. Over and beyond that, I've tried to look at some forms of human trafficking which don't appear in many of the international writings, particularly child trafficking, which results in multi-murder. In other words, children who are entrapped, who are then murdered, and their organs are then sold on the international market or used for traditional medical purposes. Now, that is not purely South African. It's widespread in Southern Africa, but that was an important finding. We also found a lot of illegal adoption. Here again, that's a form of trafficking which can't be measured with any kind of accuracy. And those were some of the main findings of the book.
All right, thank you so much for your time, Professor.
Thank you.